Good morning, guys. Today's lesson is 6.03 Outliers. Today's aim is how do we identify and represent extreme data points. So based on your survey from last week, I took 10 of you and the number of hours you watch TV and put them into this table. So using this data, I would like you to find the 5-number summary and the mean. Okay, so I used a TI calculator because it gives you all this. You can do it by hand. Which we went over last week. You can use another calculator tool online. There are numerous ones, but these are your values here. Your min is 6, Q1 is 8, median is 9.75 because you had to average 2 out. Q3 is 13 and max is 35. My mean is 12.55. So now my question before we get into this lesson is, why do you think the median and the mean were so different? And I'm not going to give you an answer. You're going to learn why by the end of today's lesson. So let's talk about outliers, right? So it's an observation that lies an abnormal distance from other values in a random sample, right? So an outlier would be, in our do now's case, a value that falls extremely far from the rest of the number of hours. Now, right, if an outlier is present, our best measure of central tendency becomes the median, and it's because of the fact that the median is a middle number, right? It's in the middle of a data set, meaning if you have an extreme value, right? If you have an outlier present, the outlier kind of gets canceled out anyway when you do the median test. The mean, however, is an average, right? So if you have a really small or really large number in your data set, when you average that out, it's gonna affect it. We say it pulls the mean in that direction. In class, what we would have done is a little activity, and we could have seen the effect of an outlier by averaging our ages together, either including myself or removing myself. So it would have been a lot easier to see, but we say it pulls it. And if you get into statistics and you start doing like modals and talking about types of histograms, you'll see when there's an outlier present, your histogram is going to become skewed, which we're not going to talk about in this class. Now, how do we determine outlier, right? Part of it is just looking at the data set and saying this feels outside, but there is an actual test. So the test is as follows. First, we find the interquartile range, which is simply Q3 minus Q1. And then we use the following calculations to determine our fence. And when I mean fence, what I'm saying is these are the lowest and highest values we can get to without considering it an outlier. So we do the low end outlier, which is Q1 minus 1.5 times IQR. We do the high end outlier, which is Q3 plus 1.5 times IQR, right? So we're extending past the quartiles. And then we check. So is there an outlier? Yes or no? What's the effect? So let's go back to our do now, right? So first question for you is there an outlier present? How do you know? So you should do the test, and then what would your new mean be without the outlier? So how would the mean change from that outlier? Okay, so first, right, here's my IQR, which is 5. 13 minus 8. So then to find my low outlier, I do 8, which is my Q1, minus 5 times 1.5. To find my high outlier, I take 13, which is my Q3, plus 5 times 1.5. So now this range here, right, 0.5 to 20.5. That tells me that anything outside those two values is now an outlier. Therefore, right, at 35 hours of television, you know who you are? You are an outlier. Your value is greater than Q3 plus 1.5 of the IQR. Therefore, if we were talking about like how we would organize this data, we would actually remove it when we do our descriptive statistics because our new mean, if you remove that 35, is 10.06. Compare that to our original median of 9.75, and you see that now those two values are very similar like we saw yet last week. And that's not unintentional. Like that is meant to happen. By removing an outlier, you sort of quote unquote normalize the mean. So you're going to do a little analysis of this virus. So there's a COVID-19 tracker sponsored by the Department of Health in in New York. So I took some data from there, took some deaths related to COVID-19. I want you to do what we just did. So first, find your five number summary, find your mean. Second, test for an outlier, and then third, explain why you found an outlier and how you would want to change your mean, or how it would change your mean. All right, guys, have a great day. I will talk to you all on Wednesday.